we're going to want to create our actor, which will be our level shims. We need a spawn transform. Let's just make a transform out of nothing. And it's a replicated actor, but let's make sure that it's actually set up so as such. So parent class, level shims, blueprint, interfaces, don't need to worry about that. Only relevant, always relevant, replicate, net load on client. This actor will be loaded on network clients during map load. Net use owner relevancy, don't need that. Replicates is true, net priority. Alright. So that should work just fine. So we've got our level shim started. Compilers seem overly complicated. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't even go there. Yeah, like compilers, unless you want to get into why are things done a certain way, and the answer always being reasons and the 80s, and then the further answers to those questions being the 70s, and then before that being we don't fucking remember anymore. I wouldn't want to do anything with compilers. It just seems like unless like if you're going to be doing that sort of stuff and you're going to be like ripping your legs off in order to figure out how to do certain things, like you should get paid for that. You know, like you should be working at IBM or some shit and be making a lot of money, and you know, at least they pay you to rip your legs off. So let's do this one at a time. So if we open up our player controller, let's just move one single thing at a time. So let's start with ground pound ball. So this is going to be a public function on here, which will be ground pound ball. We need to take hitter ball, direction force, ball position on ground. Should we make these also handle the actual network calls? As in, if we just copy paste the whole thing over there. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world to actually do it that way. Let's try it that way to start with and see if it turns into a fucking mess. Yeah, I'd say that the two top paying things are going to be just people dealing with legacy systems, and I'm pretty sure compilers are all like 100% legacy systems. And if you're not dealing with legacy systems, you're probably not working on anything that's anywhere near real. So you need a player proxy actor and a Dashkin object actor. So we'll just set it like that. Thank you for following Warhead 540. Are you somebody who follows Adam? I think I might remember that. Alright, and this thing also needs to be cast to a ball. Okay, so sticky ball hit, then we need record ball touch. Needs to be a thing. Kind of sucks that I can't copy an entire function. Like, I can copy the contents of a function, but I can't copy a function between blueprints. Which is frustrating. Alright, so this guy has hitter, ball, and type. And yeah, welcome. I'm in a better mood than I was earlier. Earlier I was very frustrated. So if you're looking for a rage-a-thon, I've already raged out today. That's a Dashkin object reference, and then this is a touch type. Yeah, what I'm working on today here is pretty much just trying to get some bug fixes in here. I'm not really making any new features. Update 3 that came out last weekend, the weekend before. Ball. Alright, get ball. It had a lot more bugs than it should. We fixed the game-breaking bugs and shipped it, but there's a lot of stuff in there, so I have to go back and fix a lot of stuff. So that's just what we're doing. So next update is going to be mainly stuff from Adam. So new content, some new music, things like that. It's not really going to be new systems, like it'll be more fixes to the existing broken systems, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like it's going to be a content, like a no content update, but okay, so why is this screwed up? This is interesting. So this guy was looking like this, and we were supposed to grab the force from that? I'm wondering why this didn't copy over. I probably screwed up when I copy-pasted this thing. So it's setting it there, and then otherwise it's this dedicated server velocity diff. So we need a variable here for this. Didn't we make a variable for this that we're supposed to be using? In our globals, didn't we? Or didn't I? Get max range. Yeah, get dedicated server physics mod. You're shocked that no one engine made that no one in I assume you meant you're shocked that nobody in games has made like a super amazing game engine that like has completely dominated the market. Is that more of the I mean at that point you might say like why don't we all use the same operating system or chipset or the same everything? You know, why in the modern world have we just been fuck it, JavaScript is the new language that everybody writes everything in. To hell with it. And if it doesn't if you're not writing in JavaScript, we'll compile it to JavaScript and then we'll run JavaScript and you have no choice in the matter. All right, so this is going to be multiplied right here. And then set there. So does this compile now? Yes, it does. Is it pretty? No, it's not. And we'll see if it actually functions too. Java is only good for portability. I gotta say, I have found that using Java for things that Java is usually not used for has been pretty successful for me. Oh, you meant Japan's super engine. I have no, I don't even know what that is. Yeah, one of the things that I found is actually all the tools stuff that I write, you might expect to be using a lot more Python or something like that, but I've ended up writing all my tools in Java, whereas I started like writing off stuff in like Batch and Shell scripts, and then writing things in Python, and finally or like JavaScript and running it inside of something else. I've actually just moved all the way to Java for pretty much all the tools because it's so structured and you have to have stupid structure that it actually has been really nice for tools development because tools are usually just trash. You know, like here's all your trash code and they end up being completely unmaintainable. And after a while, it's just like, oh yeah, you know, just rewrite it. And these guys didn't save their types. Okay, so ground pound ball, what we're going to want to do is go to our player controller, a player logic object, and we want to go to the ground pound active. and change our versus ball here. We want to grab our want to snag our level shims, and we want to call a server. No. Yes, we do. I guess we have to cast this thing? Do it like that. Well, let's see if this works. You just... Yeah. Alright, so ground pound ball should be like that. Let's make sure it works with a dedicated server. So the other question would be, did this thing actually copy over all this? Run on server and reliable? Yeah, it did copy. Good. What just happened? Why did this... Did we shut down or something like that? Shutting down platform connection. Your connection to the host has been lost. Alright, so we actually just shut off. Whoops, I spent too long. Yeah. No owning connection for actor BP level shim C0. Function server ground pound ball will not be processed. No owning connection for actor. So we don't own it, so we can't call anything on it. Yeah, this is what I was thinking was going to be an issue, was I couldn't just make these event-based things. I actually have to make these public functions and proxy everything through something else, because the only thing that the client actually owns is that player controller. So we have to add crap to like the player controller to be able to actually call the server and execute stuff on these guys. So this all has to be inside of functions that are called, which is unfortunate that we have to kind of redo it, but that's why I just did one function to start with to make sure it actually works before I do everything, because just that's how it is. But at least I can kind of make these not as awful. So kind of refactor some of these things as I go along, so I'm not dragging nodes from everywhere else like a crazy person. And these actually copy pasted properly here, which is interesting to think that does it. All right, so new location is coming from ball position. Sweep and teleporter there. We need temp velocity variable here. Well, I guess we could just keep it here. So this normalize is coming from direction. And this is coming from force. This is coming from ball. Yeah, no, I think a lot of like you're saying, Java's good only because of portability. I think a lot of that is, I think a lot of people use Java in just about the worst possible way you could program in a language. Like, I don't hate Java. I hate fucking Java developers. Like, they're all idiots. Like, oh yeah, we want to use interfaces on everything because interoperability later. And be like, Jesus Christ, dude, you don't need 20 fucking, like, if you've seen any of those, like Java call stacks for like, this is how deep you have to get inside of something to finally actually call the database with like just a standard ORM layer. Yeah, it was this guy's post here was like where this is this is like your standard Java like web server thing that some Java hipster would put together where you're on top of like Tomcat and then you've got some web proxy interceptor shit on top of that and then your Spring system and your web plugin crap all on top of that. And then you finally have your actual like this one line there. You know, okay, we'll select our action. Okay, let's proxy that through some other bullshit. And like literally just right here is what actually does. This is where like you take the user's input and you're like, oh cool, he wants to set his email to, you know, pretty pink princess at hotmail55.com. And then you've got, okay, well we'll change everything into our data access objects and then we'll use, you know, more Spring and Hibernate and ORM layers. Then we'll finally get to JDBC and convert that into a SQL statement and put that in there. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? That's why I hate Java programmers. They do crap like that and they think they're geniuses. It's like, no, you're not a genius for stitching together 2 million things. You're the opposite of that. You've managed to make something that should add two numbers together add a hell of a lot more than two numbers together. Alright, so I think that's ball position. And temp velocity, never direction, which is, yeah, get direction. I guess they think it's better security. Well, it's more of just when you start working inside of stuff with Java, I think there's much more of a, we're going to use all the open source stuff. We don't have to do any of this. We don't have to write any queuing systems. We don't have to understand this. I can just boot up my Zookeeper inside of my Spring, inside of my Jetty server, and, you know, it's going to take me not too long, and then I can just boot up MySQL, and then you've got this giant pile of, you know, this homunculus of 200 things, this like human centipede of coding happening, where things are going through all these other systems, and they have to be munged and sponged into whatever the fuck the other system takes. And it's just ugly and stupid. I think it's better security. I think that's worse security. Like the more complicated crap your code actually goes through, the kind of the less secure it is. You got more surface area. Because in a lot more, you know, it's just security by obscurity. And hopefully all those open source libraries and all of the libraries that those libraries depend on, all of them also update all their things. Because if they don't, all of a sudden you don't even know you're compromised because you didn't even know you pulled in that library because somebody else pulled it in. So you never know. Okay, so ground pound ball is like that. So what we need to do is go back to our player logic object and We need to get our player controller and do our server ground pound ball. So that's going to be player proxy. Yeah. Well, it's also if somebody asks you to do something and you're relying on too many open source frameworks that are just stitched together, it can turn into, well, that we just don't support that. Like, I think that was one of the things. Like, I've definitely gone to some interviews and asked some people point blank, like, don't you think you rely on open source stuff a little bit too much? And the guy's like, no. I'm like, but what if you need to write the system or something? I'm like, oh, well, we'll just plug in another framework. And it's like, you know, at some point, that's not going to work anymore. It's like at Amazon, the Amazon's core Java server is called Coral, and the Coral client actually leaks. Like once you make a connection to a specific server, it will spin up a daemon thread, and daemon thread in Java is a thread that doesn't exit. It always exists until the process is done. It'll spin up a daemon thread to watch that connection. So whenever you make a new connection to a new host for these web services, and there's thousands of them that all talk to each other, it's creating a new thread. So they just restart the servers after a while. I don't think you should always strive for, like the high performance, but you should at least strive for high debuggability. Like some of your systems really don't need to be super performant, but as long as they're easy to understand, they'll be easy to optimize later if you need to. Okay, so we need to call get shims, get level shims, cast to BP level shims, and then on that call ground pound ball. Because it has to go through the player controller, because as I thought that was true, but, I don't remember everything that I want to remember all the time. So, ground pound ball. Excellent. Restart the server? Oh, no. That's what happens. I'm pretty sure it's still like this because Amazon is the way it is, but they just have it on a restart. Like all their servers, after a certain number of transactions, will just restart. That's just what they do. That's it. End of story. And you might think, God, that is the most idiotic way to do anything, but it's just they can write services that restart and handle that gracefully much easier than they can fix all their busted shit. And it's not like a restart like, after 3 weeks or something, we'll just restart the servers because, just who cares? Blanket, like that's sometimes a really good policy of just be like, it doesn't matter after a month, restart the damn box, just, it doesn't matter at that point. There's diminishing returns for making everything absolutely perfect, and having, you know, your website function. It's more like, you know, a couple hours. That's where you get into just like writing languages specifically so you never have to deal with that problem again. You're like, all right, screw it. Everything is a copy and immutable, and, you know, we're just going to write our entire thing around that. We now no longer have to worry about concurrency problems. We now no longer have to worry about servers running out of blah and restarting them. We're just going to build it into the language that you cannot possibly fuck this up. Man, I cannot possibly get this thing in the fucking goal either. Alright, so that's 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. Alright, so high hit ball. We gotta implement you. Alright, cool. So, server high hit ball. Let's just duplicate this one. We'll call it high hit ball. Delete all this trash, and we'll see. There is no on ground, so we can get rid of that. Alright, so record ball touch. We don't need a branch on this. We can just do it this way. Does sticky ball hit? Record with high hit is the thing. Well, you gotta understand, like, large corporations like Amazon they're built by kind of the low-level engineers now. Like, when they got started, they probably had more senior people, but, you know, everything's kind of in maintenance mode. So set actor location. And then we set our temp velocity to normal times blah. If we are a dedicated server, we are going to multiply out that thing. We're going to set our linear velocity to our new velocity there. Cast to a ball and call net on hit by player. And do we have anything in here that's different? Target hitter position, force direction. Ah, it looks like we're done with this. So that's high hit ball. So it's a lot simpler there. So we'll call level shims high hit ball. Alright, so let's go make sure that high hit ball actually works. So we will not need to change the player logic object anymore. We just are changing the player controller. we're going to have to switch on if we're a bot or not and use the player proxy. Or, what a joke. Well, let's go ahead and boot this up and see how it works. It's looking proper. All right, so let's go to the next one. So that's going to be low hit ball. So what's the difference here? Looks like the only difference is that we're recording the ball touch there. So let's go to our little shims, duplicate high hit, and just do low hit ball. And the only thing we have to change is this. Okay, so that's low hit ball. We'll need slide hit ball. It looks like it just has slide. And everything else is the same. So these are all obviously just copy pastas of each other, which I kind of want to keep that to be true because there are specific abilities. If I have something that I need to put in there, looks like defend is the same. I could definitely see myself having to go put in specific logic for specific abilities. And if I don't have to go pull apart a giant system like a grilled cheese sandwich, then that's all fine with me. Alright, so that's slide hit. This is low hit. I'm just trying to select it. I can't select it. Obviously, you need a 4K monitor to view all the things in your blueprints. That's how you know your blueprint is too big. Yeah, that might be contributing to some of the wavy craziness, because when we're on a dedicated server, I'm actually teleporting the ball when hits happen. So if you can actually teleport the ball if you have bad lag. You can put it right where you want it, because even if somebody else touched it, it's going to where you want it to be. High hit effect, low hit effect. Do we have a ground pound effect? Clay ground pound player. Ground pound effect is here. Do we have a defend effect? Well, these are player v players. Alright, so these are all player effects. So there is no defend effect because there is no defense for players. Okay, so all the hits on the ball should be proxied. Let's go try it out. For this thing, it's easier to iterate when you're using blueprint stuff for some of this. And it's definitely easier to create network calls inside of blueprints. So the reason I use blueprints is just partially I want to learn them, and partially because it can be pretty easy to set stuff up in blueprints. I mean, if I was refactoring C++ code right now, I would argue it'd probably be a little bit more difficult because I'd have to be recompiling all over the place. Though I might do it a little bit faster, but I might have more hidden bugs in it because blah. Alright, so high hit, low hit. Ground pound hit. Alright, that appears to be working. So let's go fix the player object. So I probably could have written it all in C++. Definitely that's true. I probably would have written less code, but especially with all these abilities and everything, it was kind of making them one-off, and in-game data kind of separates out some of these things so they can be kind of messy and stupid, because abilities sometimes need to be messy and stupid for them to kind of work. Alright, so this is the ground pound stuff, so this will be ball position, force, direction, on ground. I'll just wire it up like that. So now the bot should be able to hit the ball. PS3 never hit again? Yeah, PS3 was just a nightmare for game developers, because we don't give two shits about making things like super amazing. We just care about shipping the game, because if we don't prioritize shipping the game, we never ship anything. But there are entire houses of developers just to make the PS3 work. Like, what would happen? One of my friends worked at a company in California, and what they would do is their entire company would just take games from Electronic Arts, and they would well, he's not doing anything, is he? They take games from Electronic Arts that they just get, and it would just be make it work on PS3. That's it. So their entire jobs would be make it work on PS3. Just a mess. All right, so this guy should be able to hit the ball now. Is he not able to hit it? Yeah, looks like he's not doing it. That's because I didn't hook up the other fucking things, did I? All right. Yeah, I think the PS3 is a great example of how not to make a new console. It's like, alright, cool, you're gonna have to hire a whole bunch of new specialized people and rewrite everything that you currently do to work inside of multi-threading craziness. And you're like, oh man, look at all these amazing things, and then games are already risky. You don't need to make more risk by adding new shit all the time. Dollars to donuts, you're gonna make no money on your game, and you're not gonna ship. So let's make that let's make it even more difficult. Ah. If we had more dedicated coders, I don't know. Coders are the ones who cause all the problems, right? Ah, shit, all this has to be moved as well, doesn't it? Because we're grabbing the player controller. Why are we grabbing the player controller? Get ping. Okay, so I'm gonna say if player controller so we don't need some of this stuff.